asking about a mission and purpose, just because we know that is a deliverable for the grant. And as we go about doing outreach into the world, we want to be sure that we are in agreement about the message and how we're sort of positioning it. Because the more people hear a similar language, the more likely it is to stick and to be able to be tied back to something. Because it's always, there are a lot of initiatives and they get a little confusing. But first and foremost, let's focus on youth outreach and engagement. And one of the questions, thank you to those who helped plan today's meeting, one of the questions that came up is, we know that the 12 to 26 age span is what has been sort of historically quoted as what this is, what the target group, if you will, that is being, sort of hoping to benefit from this. We also recognize that 12 to 26 is extremely broad, both from a developmental perspective, but also from an outreach perspective. And how do you go about gathering input in a time-bound and efficient manner? And as a result of our planning discussion, one thing that we agreed to was that we were going to, I think, Meg, do a little bit of research on the viability of narrowing that, not starting with an assumption that you as a group want to narrow, but knowing that if you conclude narrowing may make sense, if that's a viable possibility given the conditions of the grant. And so I don't even know the answer to what you may have discovered. So there's no sort of fakery here. In order for the group to discuss the target age group, do we have any ideas about whether we're bound to the 12 to 26?
So I have not gotten feedback from the grant management specialist on the question that I asked. However, the grant application itself, it never defines. So the proposal that we wrote was very, very different than the proposals that others wrote around the nation. So the notice of funding did not require that it be youth focused. That was specific to our particular proposal. And in our particular proposal, we did not define what youth meant. School age is used in one location, but not in the other locations. So there's nothing from the funder that defines youth. And we have not, as of yet, defined youth. So I think it's up to us at this point to determine we want to define that more narrowly or not, but it wouldn't, there's nothing to indicate that the funder would say that was inappropriate. If that helps.
Okay, so thank you. So then let's talk about for what we hope to accomplish, meaning around the social connectedness and food, it's nutritionally secure kind of thing. What age group you think is the most, I guess I'll say, impactful and achievable to be focusing on? You know, if people have thoughts about that, or even assumptions you started with when you sort of joined this initiative, either one. But today we can really try to be as explicit as possible so that as we're doing outreach, we know how we're going about targeting it. Yeah. Thoughts? And I'll just open the floor to think out loud.
I think if you picked school age children, you would have the opportunity to work with the school food pantries to find out who the kids are that are in need. That might bring you to the kids without having to look too hard.
I think my initial thought also is like 13 to 18 has infrastructure in place that we could utilize without having to reinvent the wheel. And in addition to that, although I don't love this, social media is like 13 and above gives us an opportunity and an inroad with social media to target and directly reach young people. in a way that is useful and impactful to us. So that was my instant kind of like response in thinking about ages that are targetable and already have structures in place that we could utilize.
Thanks.
It might,
I'm done.
it might
Go ahead.
be interesting to check the trio folks at UMPI and I assume UMFK. Actually, I don't know that part, but and maybe, yeah, I'm just thinking like that would be also high school students, but rising college, possibly rising freshmen. And they would also have connection to rising sophomores and juniors at the college.
So Kate, are you thinking yes from 13 and add those in? Or are you thinking of that as a target population?
I was thinking of 13 is lower than trio might go
Right.
to, I think.
Me too.
Although I think they have some programs that go below high school, but they also have connection to some over 18-year-olds who have stayed in Aroostook County. And maybe people who have come to Aroostook County, depending on who's there. But the trio kids would be, I mean, they're all first generation usually, and usually low income. So they would be, that might bring us up to, I mean, if you were thinking rising juniors, sophomores and juniors in college, then you would be thinking over 18, but rising freshman is 18 years old. So.
So I think I'm hearing a combination of the, you know, the 13 to 18 plus, but if you hit the 18, narrowing to the, maybe to the trio kids or other kids who sort of fit into that social demographic around lower income, first generation, sort of matriculating into college, or some level of higher ed training, technical stuff. What do people think about that? Sounds like we're lopping off the upper end for sure. In other words, going much older than that may get difficult. I'm hearing that focusing on the sort of school age kids allows for us to use the schools for access and have partners and get some idea of who's already benefiting from food security related services to better understand their needs. And then I think, Kate, I'm hearing you say, yes, maybe, and let's add up a little bit, just so as we're sweeping, we're getting a full complement. What do people think?
Well, I do like, I think there's a lot of promise to explore pre-existing infrastructure, which might bring it down to that younger age group, you know, from that 13 to 18. Because I think ultimately, you know, not trying to get too far ahead, but in doing so and looking ahead, I think, you know, if we're trying to develop a program that can kind of appeal to as many people as possible, once we broaden the age group, you know, as we continue to broaden it, it's going to be harder to, I think, implement kind of a program that will appeal to everyone. That's not going to be, you know, it won't be so spread out in its effect, because I think it's just going to be pretty difficult to try to come up with ideas for, you know, as wide as we get with age, everyone's sort of development is different at that point. So I think the smaller we can keep it is definitely the better. And I do know that if we stick with the more younger side, we do have the option of using the Food Corps program, which I think would be a pretty good benefit. But I know once we get up past that 18 years old, might not be able to explore that option so much. That's just some thoughts I have.
Just a thought that I had, if in the idea of focusing on in an age range, what's nice about that is that we can do the work, test it out, figure, maybe do some, shakedown work of what does and doesn't work, and then scale it either younger or older, with another grant in future years.
That's a great point. So start with like 13 to 18 and then use that as the demonstration model, right? And then go from there. What do people think?
I think that's a really good point. I appreciate that specificity also gives us the ability to really create programming that is impactful versus, trying to create something that is everything for everyone. That kind of mission drift in some ways is less useful in piloting new things. So Kate, I really appreciate that point is a good reframe, as opposed to thinking, well, we're leaving people out. Instead, thinking of that as actually we're just creating programming that could be shifted with knowledge that we gain.
Don, you good with that? Yes.
I wasn't here last meeting, but when we're talking programming, have we already have ideas about what that program would look like? Or is that
Right.
something we're going to start with?
Carol won't let us go there yet.
I know,
Oh,
I
okay.
got, and I'll just explain why. You're right, Meg. I was the holdout during our planning meeting because we were sort of leaping to a good idea that is ostensibly like, great idea, but we have not put effort into gathering direct youth voice input. And part of this process, is, I think, not because I say so, but because my job is to honor what the grant laid out and sort of what we're trying to build within the community, your community, the county, is getting youth voice to validate some assumptions or challenge them or come up with ideas, right? So it's sort of like there's one more step to knowing the what and then the how. But right now we need youth input, which is the youth input will then either validate some ideas or introduce new ideas, like that kind of thing. We're one step before the what, I think. Tempting though it is, because I want to do it myself. I'm a wicked problem solver. My friends have learned to say, I'm not asking you to solve my problem. I just want you to listen. Because I'm like always going for the solution.
The only reason I ask is it's according what the programming is as to how you're going to implement it and with what age group. So, I mean, if you're going to do programs geared towards kids and you're going to bring it to, say, the summer feeding program, that would be a much different looking program than if you were going to set something up at a high school somewhere. So that's the only reason I was asking.
Oh, it's totally fair. Like,
And I
because
always-
this is, a chicken
I
egg
always
thing, right?
find any programming that you bring to anywhere is bringing it to where the kids already are is always easier than trying to get them to come to you. So if you could implement something like the summer feeding program, the kids flock to where the food comes in, you could be there doing something. Just a thought.
Absolutely fair. And hopefully anything we learn from the young people will help us better understand. Like, we may think we know their where, but they may say, actually, this is where I get my food, kind of thing. And then we just want to incorporate their input, right? Like, there may be things that we just don't know. So after the point of this, then I'm going to assume for discussion's sake that we are using the frame of a pilot. and that what we're doing is really targeting like 13 to 18. And that we need to gather some information from that population. And the food correlation is an interesting path. And I think what we want to spend some of the time on right now is looking at a youth survey. Bronson, maybe we should screen share. Not sure how people feel about that, but that might be good to look at the youth survey that we are thinking would be one of the methodologies for gathering input. And there may be others, which we need to talk about a little bit, but we thought we would start by talking a little bit about a youth survey, how we want to go about rolling it out and what we want the timeline to be, because we know we need that youth input. Fair enough? Bronson, you want to walk us through the survey? This is just a draft. We wanted something to get us started because creating from whole cloth, especially via Zoom, is never quite as productive as having something to either say no to or yes to or tinker with, right? So Bronson, you want to walk us through the draft?
Yeah, I'm just getting it pulled up here. So do we think it would be best to share my screen, because it is the way it's formatted on the internet, it's kind of small. So I don't know if individuals would be able to see it, or should I just read it? And does anyone have any preference on that?
Is it like a website? I don't understand if it's on the internet. What do you mean? Or is it just like in your screen, in your share file?
Yeah, no, it is on a website, but the way because it's kind of long, so I guess I can just kind of scroll down. I mean, it's only a few questions, so I could just scroll down and up and show you all if you want to do that.
Pop the website into the chat and we can follow
Yes,
along with you?
that is a good idea, actually. I will do that.
Let's
Good
do
call.
that. Good call.
This from a person who's been on a lot of Zoom meetings.
That should bring it up there.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So everybody able to open the link, okay? Okay. So we will assume that everyone is looking at it. How's that? And Bronson, you want to just set a little context for the order, the sequencing and content, just as we're all sort of looking at it as we're talking?
Yeah, so this is, based on the consensus of some of the individuals, we were trying to basically synthesize, not only obviously the social connectedness element of it, but also the nutrition security. We wanted to keep it as small as possible. So the first two questions basically are interrelated. What we're dealing with within the last 12 months, as you can see there, the first question is just simply, have you been concerned with your access to food? And then from there, going right into the second question, this was actually kind of, I took this from Sultana's presentation from the previous month, which I really liked, even though I wasn't present. It had me thinking, because I had never really thought of this kind of framework. But so for the social connectedness element of it, I have there, within that last year, do you feel you have had at least 1 to 2 people to share a personal concern with? And I wanted to specify outside of the home, not just in the home. So that would give us an idea how relevant these are to the whoever we end up sending this to in our community. And just as an idea, these were on question number 3, basically just trying to get the ball rolling here with what we think might get individuals excited. Now, a lot of this was done without necessarily the framework of 13 to 18 at the time this was made. We were kind of thinking just probably that 12 to 24. So we might need to make some adjustments on this. But so for this, I think ultimately, if we're going to be doing a program, outside of the school, there's going to need to be some sort of educational component to it to bring in individuals to help teach some of these. But as you can see there, we have farming, agriculture, foraging, which is your wild edible identification and just safety around that, because it can be a pretty comprehensive lifestyle, essentially, is foraging, self-reliance, cooking, and then a youth center. And then these were just, as I said, these were all kind of ideas that were floating around. But again, this was done without the premise of the more condensed age group that we might be, at least what seems like we might be directing towards. So that was basically the top 3 questions I think would allow us to kind of focus our aim moving forward here. And then you can see there that each question does have, if any of these individuals surveyed wanted to provide just their own feedback in an open forum, they're more than willing to do that. But so yeah, that's kind of what we come up with, at least initially, for this draft. And certainly welcome to any additional feedback, revisions, or suggestions for this.
I was thinking gleaning maybe should be added on with your foraging or somewhere in there.
Gleaning.
Gleaning. And the other thing I was thinking is social determinants of health is not just food. And I don't know if we're just focusing on food, and if we are, then that's fine. But if we're not, then should there be a question about some other things that they're missing?
Yeah,
know,
that's a good point. I think, we were trying to with the youth center, I think that was more of the, because even though it is the social determinants of health, there are 2 components of that we are kind of focusing on, which is the nutrition security and social connectedness. So that's, I think the idea is that with any of these programs, even though self-reliance does kind of have a, I don't know, that might have another sort of connotation, but I think in general, we were trying to come up with programs that not only are food related, but also bring people together that can be done to address isolation and things of that nature.
So I think in the prep, I'll just say, as someone who was involved in the planning, and thank you, Bronson, for creating a draft. And then the planning team suggested edits, but with no assumption that it's anywhere near done. I just want to be clear. The one priority was keeping it short to increase the probability that people would respond. Like if you could say, hey, here's a 5-minute survey or a 10-minute survey, the likelihood that people would respond, we started with an assumption that it might go up. The shorter might increase the probability of the number of respondents. No guarantee of that, but it was sort of a cornerstone discussion point. And since we are focusing on nutritional security and social connectedness, one could make the case that these questions are a little like, it sort of jumps from one topic to another in a way that if you're taking it, you may be like, are you asking me about do I have people I could talk to? Like the second question, are you asking me, do I have people I could talk to about my food insecurity? Or are you asking me generally about concerns? Like, so anything that you're thinking as you're looking at this is helpful. Like you don't need to be, you can be raggedy if you're just sort of like, any input is good input.
I have 2 thoughts. One is that I'm wondering if in the last question, being specific about programming that is available to young people in Aristic, or language that would be more recognizable to them, like 4-H or program specific things that would be Like when I think of farming and agriculture, having grown up in Vermont, the programs that were available to me were 4-H. Like
Mm.
people coming to my school and talking about farming and agriculture were not farmers. It was 4-H. And people coming to talk to me about, foraging were also part of like specific programs. And so I'm wondering if there are some specific things that we might be offering that would be more relatable to young people, that they would recognize a word attachment to it in that same way. I'm also wondering if hunting and fishing should be on there in terms of things that would be uh, engaging to young people, and thinking about that also, like hunter safety and safety opportunities for young people that they might not have the money or capacity to do if they don't have access to transportation. I know that was a big barrier for some young people in my community who wanted to be able to hunt and fish but didn't have money for licensing or hunter safety classes.
Oh,
They
interesting.
also might not have anybody that can take them.
Yeah. So just thinking about like word association for young people that might be useful to get them to make that connection about what those things actually are, like wilderness survival as opposed to self-reliance or foraging. What are the words that they're using that would make a connection for them? And I think I'm going to be a broken record here again, but accessible language also feels really important, especially if we are focusing on ages 13 to 18. Like that first question, have you been concerned with your access to food within the last 12 months? If I was a 13-year-old, I would be very confused by that question. And so in thinking about how language would impact whether or not they answer the survey, in thinking about like how to frame questioning in ways that encourages them to answer and also makes it accessible to them, and also thinking about what the reading level is of most of the young people that we are trying to reach. Would that question, if we reframed it, be, over the last year, have you been worried about having enough food to eat? Like, how simple can we make things so that they understand what we are actually asking them?
Great. And if there are other phraseology suggestions for the other questions, for instance, foraging, like it seemed to me a lot of people might not know what foraging is. And maybe the same for gleaning, like what, if we're going to include them, let's include a definition. And simple definition, not fancy. But I wonder if there are other things about it that you're like, they're not going to know what this is, in terms of the questions or the options, the responses.
I think similarly for that second question, over the last year, have you had a problem that you could talk to someone outside of your family about? Or something of that nature, right? Like a personal concern is not language that a 13-year-old would use or a 15-year-old would use.
I think it would also be helpful. I would just want to make sure that kids know that this means that you don't necessarily have to be in person to have this conversation. It might be, a Discord server moderator, it might be anything, anybody. So I would just want to make sure, like, somehow as we are administering this, that we're clear about what that means. I think I agree on trying to simplify as much as possible. And I wonder in the first question, to expand or contract, I guess, on Sultana's question, or rephrasing of the question is, have you been, I want to be able to say, like, has it in any time in the last year, have you been worried about not having enough to eat? And even if that gets the really random, like, yeah, I was hungry and my mom didn't put food in the fridge answer, I think you're going to get enough questions or enough answers to say, that people really are worried about what they've got. And then the community education, I wonder if, and this is just like being here, and I don't know what, like what it's like in high school in Vermont. But I'm just like, I wonder about whether or not people might see something like 4-H or FFA or something like that and like have this association of, oh, that's just the farmers. You know what I mean? And I don't know how to get around that. Like, I don't know how to get around that, but I think that that's a really important thing I really like the suggestion to be specific about that.
I also I'm not wedded to program specific. I think my point was less about include 4-H or whatever it is, and more about what are the words that will bring the association for them. Like, what is familiar to them in a way that they understand what we're asking about.
Like community garden.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what is the thing that they will they will relate to?
That would make sense.
But I also totally get what you're saying, Kate, and that is an important point, which is that, like, if they see 4-H and they're like, no, I'm not interested in learning more about 4-H because I know who goes to 4-H meetings and I'm not one of those people. I made a lot of rugs out of plastic bags at 4-H, and I'm not interested in going to those meetings either.
Well, and I was raised in a farm family, and FFA was only other farm kids. Like, you either had a farm affiliation or you wanted nothing to do with it. Like,
and the weirdest thing is I was a 4-H kid who probably should have been an FFA kid, but the FFA kids were like the big farmers.
Yeah. Yes.
Not the little farms.
They established, that's
Yeah, like the
interesting
big farms,
division.
right?
That was true in Michigan where I grew up.
Yeah.
I think yeah. Well, how do we work with the assumptions that kids might hold?
Right.
Right.
We need a survey to work out our survey.
Good point. When we say FFA, what's the first thing you think of?
I do actually think
Can I offer something?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Oh, sorry, just when it's ready. This is Keeney. I just had an observation.
Go ahead, Keeney.
I think you're making some really good points. I wonder if we just start out from just saying there is no right answer here, right or wrong answer. Like, if there's no tricks here, just some really great language. And I imagine all of you here are going to do that, can do that well. But just letting them know, just right up front, there's no right or wrong answer. Or, yeah, because again, 13-year-old or 16-year-olds, very developmentally and experienced age. So yeah, I think we started to touch on that in the beginning about an I thought we were kind of maybe going somewhere on an introduction, but I'm just suggesting that it might solve some problems.
On that question 3, couldn't we just say, do you have interest in learning more about these topics? And then just say farming or, like that. Instead of educational programs, you could just say topics or things if you want to bring it right down to. Do you have interest in learning about these things? And then list some things.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea because, in looking at it now, just having the benefit of hindsight, it is kind of, well, not only is it wordy, but it is kind of it kind of centers around a whole, and this is something that I didn't even consider when making it, it kind of focuses on one theme, you're farming, agriculture, then you have foraging, self-reliance, cooking, and then you just kind of have youth center in there, which is, it's kind of like an odd separation from what that theme is. So I do, I like everyone's idea of not only bringing down the language, making it much more condensed, but also, and as Dawn just said, just, simply say topics. It will be interesting to see. And with what Kate had said about how do you get around, because it's hard to want to, and I know we just discussed this, but thinking, how it is that we can really work with this grant that's going to be something that will not only inspire kids, but will kind of, it will focus on what we ultimately kind of are needing to some extent as well as a deliverable, something that can be measured with evidence-based practices. So, and if anyone has any other ideas like outside of this, as I said, this was, kind of made before knowing that we're going to be dealing with maybe focusing on the younger. I was thinking ultimately that we might be going with the older half of the youth genre. But if anyone has any other ideas, just as far as activities or anything like that, by all means, not if you have them now, but if you do, that's great. Just shoot me an email or anything like that.
I was just thinking, I keep reading, and maybe it's because didn't grow up in a farm family. My parents moved here. So I think of farming as the farms, the big farms. And I'm wondering if that could be changed to community agriculture, community gardens, gardening, something that's a little bit more small scale.
Growing your
personal.
own food.
Right, something.
No, I'm serious. Like
Yeah.
growing your own vegetables, growing your own food.
Yeah.
I'm really being serious here, right? Like in the interest of being accessible to young people and like what it is that we're actually trying to get them to do and is learn how to grow their own food and be interested in what it means to have access to food.
Right. When it's like, I like that because it allows us, I mean, like you can then later on dig or drill down a little bit more to be like, oh, are you talking about growing your own vegetables? Are you talking about hunting? Are you talking about growing your own meat? Are you talking about like, what does that look like? But generically, growing your own food is a thing.
Also, just in terms of like sneaky question asking, as opposed to, do you have interest in this topic? If you were interested in learning about one of these things, which would it be? Or, so to get engagement, regardless of whether like, which of these would be most interesting to you? Or, because I think that the likelihood that young people would pick more than one anyway is low. like, and the scale of how they answer surveys, it is, I'm going to check one box. And so, if you were to reframe the question as if we were to offer, or if you could learn about one of these topics, which would it be?
Could we say instead of learn, because learn sounds so academic, could we say if you were to participate in one of these activities? No?
Because who participate in activities, right?
All right,
Like,
well, yeah, but instead of learn, like if you were to do one of these things or experience one of these, you know what I mean? Like, is there a way to move it from a head thing to an activity thing in a way that might get you the hands-on learning piece? You know what I'm saying?
if you could spend time with people doing X,
Yeah, like that. Because I think for most kids, learning equates seat time. And spending time with people doing X gets to both the social connectedness and the food piece, right? So that, I mean, I wonder what people think.
That's definitely what I was going after, but as mentioned, I would love if even prior to us meeting today, if anybody had anything that they were thought, oh geez, that sounds like something that would be awesome to see, even if it has nothing to do with what's right here. I'm all for it. So if there's something that's completely, because even the youth center, I unfortunately forget who did mention that, and I thought it was a great idea, and it's not something that I was even thinking of. So I'm probably so kind of frozen in a certain boundary. So if anyone has any other ideas, by all means.
Sorry, my internet froze, so I think I might have just missed something. Or maybe not.
I talk very slow, so you probably didn't miss anything.
Okay, well, you were saying something important. All right, I'm mindful of time. Are we at a point where we can take what we've gathered so far, and Bronson, you could do a revised version and we could circulate it and then get sign off on it? Like, we want you to really look at it, the next iteration of it. And, if you have suggestions, please make them. But with the goal being that we'd like to finalize this, I don't know, maybe by the end of the week. Is that reasonable? Okay. So, all right, thank you. So then let's do that. I'm going to recommend that we start our 5-minute break now, and then come back and we'll talk about distribution method and timeline for that. How's that? All right, see you in 5. Hi, everyone. If you're nearby, we will resume.
Hi, Carol. I'm here.
Hi, Keeney. Thanks. We'll just give
Yeah.
Dawn one second to reappear. 5 minutes goes fast.
It does.
Keeney,
Yes.
how warm is it where you are?
Cold, very cold. Sunny, but cold. Is it still snowing there?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
April. Ah.
I feel like throwing a temper tantrum, to be honest. Like I'm like this close to just like lying on the floor and like really losing it.
Where are you, Sultana?
I'm back in Vermont. I was in Portland last week,
Oh,
but
you are, yeah. I'm
yeah.
sorry. I just feel like I keep saying I'm sorry to people. I'm sorry. One of my friends teaches at Cornell and they had 6 inches as of this morning. And she was just like, grr. That's all she could say was grr. And I was like, I'm sorry. I don't know what else to say.
I was in a t-shirt yesterday in Burlington sitting by the water, and I came home last night and the peepers were going and it was just like so perfect spring. And then this morning I woke up and there was like 4 inches of snow and I was like, no, I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah, I wish we could just by popular vote, vote it in or vote it out. Because I think right now there wouldn't be a lot of all right, back we are. I'm monitoring the chat. It looks like the demographics, better understanding age and potentially location within the region. And probably, Keeney, to your earlier point about a paragraph, not a long paragraph, but a couple of sentences sort of saying on the front of the survey, setting a little context might be important. Like the survey is, we will not know who you are. We're not asking for your name, kind of thing, just to let people know, like we just trying to get some info would be good. And I'll just say quickly before I forget, I think at the bottom, I'm not looking at it, but the bottom of the survey says 221 instead of 211. And just in case anybody does that, and I just happened to notice it, so I'm just worried I'm going to forget. So that's why I'm just saying it right now. What are people thumbs up or down or sideways? People good? Asking a couple of demographics, age and general, region within the county kind of thing. Does that make sense to people?
I would say yes to age, but maybe not to region, just because it's so some identifying factors potentially.
Kate, you are unmuted and then you muted, which leads
I
me to
was, yeah.
believe-
Well, I was just thinking region instead of town. But then I was thinking a kid might not know, like might not might not know, but might not associate the same way as like I do with what, like where they are in a region. But I think I guess that's why I was thinking like maybe not town, because town is pretty identifying.
Dawn, thoughts or opinion?
I don't know that we would need region because it's all of Aroostook County, so.
I'm hearing yes to age and ambivalence about region. Definitely not town. Is that fair? Like, will kids know? I don't know if kids.
I agree
can't
too that
remember.
I'm not sure kids would know what region meant.
Yeah. Trying to remember if I would have known at 13. Of course, there's always a hazard in bringing your own experience into anything. All right, then I'm just going to decide for us, and if anyone protests, that's fine, but in the interest of time, age only. How's that? All right. Now, so back to where we left off. Bronson, you will do a revised draft. We will circulate and all comments and refinements by Friday. How's that? Okay, close of business Friday. Let's talk about distribution, assuming that we're talking 13 to 18, which is primarily like junior high, high school. When do you start high school? I can't even remember. But are we assuming, well, it's a survey, right? What are the ways in which we could go about distributing this to try to get as robust a response without duplication as possible? Robust response without duplication. Unless we don't care if we have duplicative responses, because you send it to my school and then you send it to some after school program I'm a part of and I get it twice. Am I going to answer it twice? I don't know. Do we care? Thoughts about any of that? How to get it out there? Yeah.
I vote for, problematic aside, social media is always a way. But I also think that it really shouldn't matter too much if a kid answers it twice, because really it's percentages versus anything else. And you can always extrapolate out.
Do we have a
And I
budget
think-
for distribution?
Sorry, we do. We have funds for marketing, basically. So yes.
What does that lead you to, Sultana? Because when you ask the question, you must have ideas or not really.
And yeah, no, I agree with Kate that social media is one of the most low hanging fruits and probably most fruitful opportunities for us, and boosting posts and targeting posts to get feedback is certainly a good use of money.
I also think that if you offer a prize, you're going to get more people to fill it out. Even if it's just a random drawing of everybody who answered.
That would
Maybe more apt to-
require,
They're still going to be
Yeah,
more
I
apt
know.
to answer it.
And then we'll know who they are, though. Do you think a prize incentivizing them? Well, one way to think about it, to combine ideas that you are all providing, is offer a prize, which it's up to them to decide if they're willing to de-identify or to identify themselves in order to be in the pool of people, because they could do the survey without identifying, or they could, and the last question could be, thanks for filling out the survey. And if you want to throw your name in the hat for whatever, gift card or something, I don't know what you would get, just give us your email or give us your name or something. And thanks either way. I don't know.
I like the idea of, if you are, if you want a prize, if you want to be put into the drawing, feel free to give us your info. I don't think that it should be required though, to answer except for an age, just so, I think so we have an idea.
This is my technological ignorance. Could we link one form to the other form such that, and I say this because I feel like I've done it before, where you complete the survey. If you want to be entered in the drawing, you click this other thing. And that takes you to where you put your contact information. But that's separate. It's stored separately from your feedback. I don't know that a teenager is going to know the difference or care or not, but I feel like it's technologically possible.
Well, I do know for my own sake, if it is, I'm not familiar with how to do that, and I don't know that the option exists with what I use, but it very well could. I just don't know that. I haven't navigated too much through the the website that I've used, but that's just my input on that.
I wonder if it is possible when folks fill out the survey to generate like a unique code for every person that fills out the survey so that we don't actually have to get them to fill out anything. They just get like, as they in their response, like, thanks for filling out your survey. Here's your unique code. Pay attention. And on this date, we'll pick the unique code, which I do actually think is not particularly complicated.
Yeah, I'll certainly look into it. I feel like there's got to be a way to do that, so I'll definitely look into it and see what's, keeping in mind the sensitive nature of identification. But yeah, if it's just like a unique code or something, that I don't see why that couldn't work.
It's just like the Wheel of Fortune when they unique code person wins, the same thing, the person wins.
Well, it's probably, the only other way I've seen it done is to incentivize anyone who responds gets a unique code, and then everyone who responds gets a $10 gift certificate. It helps you, people will, if there are duplicates of people, you'll know, generally. But where it gets tricky is you don't know how much you could end up spending. It could be I don't know how much money is in the budget, but it could be $1,000. I'm making that up, but I don't know how many youth there are between 13 and 18 in the region, but I don't know if a prize could do it. If it's a $50 gift certificate or a $25 gift certificate or 20, I don't know.
We could also cap it and say the first X number of people to fill out get a $10 gift certificate to whatever that thing is.
I will say one of the challenges that we have run into with youth as far as, so the easiest way to do gift certificates is online, right? So you get an Amazon card or you get whatever it is, but it's emailed, and we run into difficulties with that with young people because they don't necessarily have emails that are not school emails, and they can't get anything from outside when it's a school email. So for what that's worth.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like playing around with this would be a good idea, right? And trying to figure out, Bronson, how to go about this. It sounds like we're in agreement that monetizing this is okay. And then if no one has strong feelings about whether it's a prize or 5 prizes or $10 per person, then we can figure out, given budget and process constraints, and then just even the sort of legality of engaging minors, anything in that regard that the planning team can sort out. If we reach agreement in principle, does that make sense? Sultana's thumbs up. Anybody else? You good with that? Thanks, Don. Kate, are you good with that? Like, we'll just figure it out. Okay. All right.
I feel like it might also be an ACAP, like what the agency
Oh,
is allowed to do.
Yeah. Yeah, good point. All right, so then we'll work those sort of pieces out. Let's talk a little bit about the timeline here. We're now at April 20th, essentially. Meg, can you remind us, or anyone else, but you sort of seem to carry these things in your brain, like in terms of the overall arc of this project and when we want stuff, is there a deadline that comes to mind in terms of by when we would like to turn off the survey and begin to analyze the results?
Well, the draft of the plan is, depends on which timeline you look at.
I
One
know.
says it's due in toward the end of May. So part of me thinks the longer it stays out, like it expands to fill the time allotted, right? So I kind of feel like if we do a push for 2 weeks max, after that, the input will be gathered. And I don't think that we will have a whole lot more beyond that. I do also have one question about rollout. We have the ability, so we have a number of community events coming up. Top of Maine trade show and some teen-based events. Boys and Girls Club is hosting a week of youth prevention activities with a glow dance. And there are just a number of different things where ACAP has staff available. If we wanted to do some canvassing, even just go hang out at the rec centers, go to the library after school, take some iPads, and hit different communities, different days. We're happy to do that. I have staff that I can deploy in that way if we think that's helpful. But if we don't want to do that and we just want to do social media, that's okay too.
I think others can correct me if my assumptions are wrong, but I think it's a really good idea to do more than one prong. And so, you know, actually having staff in front of people saying, hey, this is a thing, please do this, and paying for Facebook ads or whatever the thing is, ads. I know Facebook is not the thing, but I think that would be a really good idea, to not just rely on social media only.
So Tanya, you're nodding. Does that mean yes, I agree? Yes, I agree.
Yeah, I think multi-prong approach is good too, especially thinking about the young people that we're hoping to reach, not having access to Wi-Fi or social media. And so thinking about also other opportunities where young people might not be attending events, but like if there are service providers that we might be asking for help with this, so like some program collaborators that we might be asking for some support in this might also be useful.
So do those things in any way affect the timeline? In other words, do we want, Meg, what you're suggesting, do you envision it taking longer than, I'm making this up, May 15th?
No, I think we absolutely need to be done by May 15th. Just because I think we need to get to some strategy.
May 10th? I don't know. I mean, I just was going toward the 13th because I think I'm not looking at my calendar, but that's like a Friday maybe, is it? I don't even know.
It is. The 13th is a Friday. Yep. That gives us 3 weeks to collect data. I think that's sufficient. I don't know what other folks think. This, I'm just, the draft of the timeline, the draft accelerator plan with objectives is anticipated June 21st. With some evaluation and performance measurement due a little bit later than that. So that would give us a solid month then to do the strategies.
As far as schools are concerned, I doubt they're gonna share out your survey. But rec centers might. Don't know. You never know.
Do you think it's possible to make up a poster with a QR code
Okay.
that you
Yeah, we
can
can
distribute to
absolutely
the
do
high
that.
schools?
And rec centers, yeah. Be good.
And libraries.
Also just thinking about employing young people in this, which is that if we could incentivize young people to share the survey.
Yeah.
If we were thinking about incentivizing young people to take the survey, like show us how many times you've shared the survey with people, or, you know, like, could you put up a QR code in your school,
Mhm.
like a poster of the QR code in your hallway, or, you know, whatever that is. Like, I don't know what that looks like in terms of coming back to the planning team, thinking about what the legality and process function of monetizing that looks like, but that might be something we could think about too.
I do have a list of guidance counselors, Meg, I can share with you if you want that. Just see if they would share it out or even put up a poster with a QR code.
I think we might have that. I know that Bryn works with them on Breakthrough Youth, but yeah, I'm thinking we also have an in with homeschool association, so we can send it out to those folks to try and capture. One of our staff members is a scout leader, so you may be able to circulate it that way.
What about like church youth groups?
Mm.
Is that, I mean, I know those kids may be kind of involved, connected anyway, but
Okay, so it sounds like there are a number of ways to go about, getting this out. And I think I think we have agreement in principle about how to go about this. And incentivizing youth to circulate, if we can figure out how to do that. And incentivizing those who participate to do so. And then and we're not worried about redundancies. And we know schools are probably a no, but it sounds like we're going to test that. And then various sort of after school or, youth related activity centers, including churches, maybe places to either put up a poster or ask them if we can, something like that. Right. So maybe the work from here is refine the survey, do as we've already discussed in terms of circulating and finalizing, and then pull together the outreach and distribution plan in a way that you can just see it, and then if anything is missing, just add to it. And again, do that in fairly short order so that by the 10th or 15th of May, we have responses back. And we know we're going to be closing it and be ready for the analysis piece. Fair enough? All right, I don't want to spend a ton of time on detail right now because I think if we can see a sort of the arc of a plan, it'll just help us see where there are gaps. Does that make sense? Okay. Anything else on that before I transition us to a different topic? To our final topic of the day. All right, thank you for all of your good thinking. Bronson, I'm wondering if you would be willing to just say a little bit about why a mission statement or a purpose statement is important to this project at this point in time.
Well, I will say first and perhaps foremost, that it is a requirement that we do have a mission statement as part of the accelerator plan. So that is a requisite that the CDC would like. But amongst other things, I do think that it would be beneficial for us to kind of come up with a bumper sticker type of motto that we can all agree upon. My idea was if we could all perhaps just come up in our own time with something and then kind of work through it from there. But at this point we have other work to do. So I'm not trying to get too far ahead, but I think there would be a lot of wisdom, I think, if we could all come together and develop an idea that we're trying to pursue. Because I know even for myself, listening to Sultana and Kate, there's just so many different perspectives. And I think if it's just driven by, if I'm just going to write it, it might not reach the audience that ultimately we're after. So I think if we could come up with a consensus, kind of average a theme out and deliver it, I think that would be of benefit. It is kind of difficult at this stage too, because we don't know what we're going to be doing, but then again, that might not be too big of an issue because we know what we're looking to serve, and that's ultimately what's most important, as opposed to just what.
Thanks for setting the stage a little bit. I mean, one of the most painful things I do with groups is formalize language with groups, right? So I don't want anyone sort of like forcing that level of thinking right now. But one thing that works pretty well often is if I just sort of hold quiet space right now. You know enough about what we're trying to do. We know it's nutritional security and social connectedness, whatever language. We know it's youth. We know it's the county. And so, I'm big on sort of what's the purpose statement. The mission statement can be built from that. Like, what's the purpose here? And I would love to just give you like 3 to 5 minutes of silence and just get you to think, and then just drop something rough and raggedy into the chat, right? It doesn't have to be a statement. It can just be a partial, thought, but enough to begin to give language for Bronson and you to then take away and begin to craft something so that we then come back and sort of collectively go, yes, given what we know for where we are in this process, yes, that seems apt, or it isn't inspirational enough or whatever, right? But I'm wondering if I just give you 3 to 5 minutes to just sit quietly and think, and then drop something in the chat and not get too like performance anxiety about it, but just like give us the ideas. Does that work for people? All right, I'm going to keep track of time because I'm really good at that while you all do the hard work of thinking. And I will hold the silence, and then I'll just give you 5 minutes. I'll just invite everyone to drop something in the chat. Thanks, everyone. Super fun to see your ideas about how to go about sort of telling this story at a level that people can ideally see themselves in it, right? Like, because one of the reasons we do this is sense making for those who might benefit from it, but also those who might contribute to it. I'm not convinced at this point that I want to spend time discussing it, although I'm open to that. The goal for today was really to just extrapolate high level ideas and then have material to work with. And I'm your facilitator, so if it's helpful to anyone to talk about this, we have a little bit of time. Anybody have anything they want to say or things that they would like to explore related to this? The goal would be to take something from this, which you've generously started here, and then take it away, have the planning group sort of do a little work on it, and then come back to you with something. And also as a way to allow people who were not able to be here today to sort of be able to embroider, right, or add, or you know, a question, some of the thinking, so that ultimately we would be coming back together to discuss and refine and finalize. That's sort of the goal of this. Any desire to discuss it right now?
I just want to say thanks to Kate for putting in building a community of trust. What a beautiful phrase and framing.
Thank you. I was wondering if we could, it doesn't have to be answered right now, but just have a sense of who this is for. Is it for, like, is this mission statement for the CDC, so it has to be all the big words? Or is this mission statement for Aroostook County?
That's actually a great question. You know, it doesn't on the accelerator plan. I have it right here. Just bear with me one moment. I don't think it does distinguish between the two, but let me just confirm that. So it says the leadership team will articulate a shared mission statement that represents the purpose of the SDOH accelerator plan with mutually agreed upon goals. So
I'm a big believer that we train the CDC, but through you and your insights and wisdom, and not conform to them at the expense of community. And I haven't had any problems with projects when we do that. That said, your wisdom may point us in a different direction. Sultana, you were going to jump in.
If I could like snap through the screen, I would, because I'm wholeheartedly in support of that.
Every little bit of training of people like that helps, right? Like, can't give up. So we will assume it's for you, for community, for people to see themselves in this solution. And then as necessary, explain it in thought, intellectually driven language, learned language for those experts who need. How's that? So like the translation is to them, not the translation is from them to community. We're gonna put, you know what I mean? We'll push the language up. Mostly before we're done today, I would like someone to explain why my orange cat is obsessed today. I don't know what's going on. My apologies if he's been visually distracting. He's never this. Usually it's my gray cat who's like, pet me, but he's obsessed today. And I don't know if it's a full moon or what, but my apologies if he's distracting. I think we've done our work for today, other than I think we need a rock solid approach to how to circle to people who are not here to make sure they're apprised. So we aren't sort of, because you know, you can read the notes, but you miss some of the essence and you sort of don't get, you're not brought along in a way that you're like, oh, I see the thought progression, right? So, and we want participation. The point of this is that ACAP is holding the center, but not driving the work in any, like, you know, it's everybody, it belongs to community kind of thing. And so I'm wondering how, given those aspirations, you know, what do you think is the most effective way to share what happened today in addition to the notes? What's the most effective way to share what happened today and build buy-in and having people sort of arrive ready and enthused to join next time? Is there like, so like think about a time you miss a meeting. What do you wish would happen after you miss a meeting? What do you wish would happen? And then let's try to make that happen.
2 minutes or less video recap.
Nice.
I do that for young people when they miss meetings. I just say, here's what we covered. Here's how it, like, here are some of the like most important points that people talked about. Here was something really important that happened, something funny that happened. 2 minutes or less.
Just to be clear, that's not like video editing from this 2 hours of video. That's just an independent.
Yeah, like I literally record myself on my phone and just send it out.
It's way easier. Just
Meg, I really want you to edit like
that
whole
just
Zoom
jumped
meeting.
so far beyond my ability.
Joke. Others, what do you think about that 2-minute recap? It might be good for all of us to get it if we do that and then watch it before the next meeting, right? Like adult learners that we are. What do you think?
I should say, I think that's probably the most brilliant meeting idea I have ever heard. And I want all my meetings to do that now.
Right.
But I'm not sure. Yeah.
It's like when you start, when you're on a TV show, right? Like we all watch it before we start the next meeting, so that we're all on the same page about what happened at the last meeting, so that we can start the next meeting fresh with what happened with the last one.
Or maybe we just make that this, I think you're saying the standard part of the context setting. Here's our 2-minute reminder, right? Like we just play the 2-minute video. Right. 2 minutes.
Previously on ER.
Exactly. Right. Don, what do you think about that?
As long as I don't have to make it.
Right.
I would say, how does Meg and Bronson feel about it? Because they're the ones who would have to make it.
Well, it's definitely better than any idea I would have suggested, but in direct response to Dawn's question, I think that's the concern. Meg, she mentioned you too.
I'm totally game. I'm always game for that kind of stuff. So
All right, let's give it a whirl. Right?
and then y'all can tear it apart and tell me that I missed the main point. But I'm willing to give it a shot.
I will just say, inevitably, when you do this with young people, the response is, "You forgot this." And well, Sarah said that, and it was really funny, and that didn't make it into the recap. It's like, okay, you can make the recap next time.
Exactly. All right, well, let's give that approach a whirl, right? And it'll be fun, if nothing else. Fun for us who are watching. Probably not fun for those who are making it, but we'll give it a whirl. All right. I think that's it for today. Any shout outs, anything you wish one another knew at this point? Anything shaken up there, around there, anywhere?
I'm just going to say I posted a couple things in the Slack recently, but I just posted one today that actually has a deadline. If you have a youth or a young adult from anywhere, I don't think they have to be from Maine. There's an organization doing a sexual assault advocacy training at SMCC, Southern Maine Community College, in June, and yeah, the application I think is due at the end of April. And it looks like it's a free training. You just have to get yourself there, I think. And it looks like it's possibly very good. But you have to be a kid. Yeah, so there you go.
Thanks, Kate. Anyone else? Shout out. All right. Sun's out in southern Maine. That's all I can say in terms of a weather report, and it's 55. So, I hope it's coming your way. No, that just happened. It was like 32 this morning. So don't, I'm just saying, like, hopefully it's headed everywhere.
It's fleeting.
It's like 5 o'clock.
All
As
right,
long as
I'm trying to give you the
5
sneak
o'clock.
preview, Sultana.
Sunny
It's
somewhere.
moving your way. I'm convinced, and I'm not, but I want to be. All right, thanks everyone. You have a found 10 minutes. Thanks team, and see you soon-ish.
And the next meeting is May 17th. It's already on your calendar, I hope.
Thank you. We will make sure, even I will make sure. I would hope I would have it. I do. All right, thanks everyone.
Bye.
Bye. Yeah, I know.